this is just a story. I do this show, America Can We Talk. If this is the first time you're listening, or if this is the 1,000th time you're listening, I do this show to speak up for the unique, extraordinary greatness of this country. I think America is a gift from God, a gift the founders gave us of a country rooted and founded in liberty. One of the most basic liberties our country granted us in the founding, in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, was the right of free speech. And there is, within America, in academia, was supposed to have been the hotbed of the robust exchange of ideas, debating ideas, learning how America's identity and culture and history and how we got to be America, how extraordinary America is. But because academia has been taken over by leftists pretty much across the board in this country, with a very few stellar exceptions, academia has become a place that shuts down speech, that not only do the institutions fill themselves with administrators and professors who are left-wingers, who are anti-American, who will not celebrate the goodness and the greatness, the unique greatness of America, but actually teach and send the message and try to spread to their students the idea that America actually has a really horrible history, a bad country, and that we're an imperialist power, and we're an evil nation, we're a nation filled with racists and xenophobes and haters. And I mean, it is an anti-American mindset that pervades American college campuses. And on top of that, the idea of actual free speech and the robust exchange of ideas is not only not taught, but students feel emboldened to shut down anyone who dares to speak about topics or speak about subjects or raise viewpoints that they don't agree with. They think this is their right, living in America, to shut down speech of people whose views they disagree with. An amazing example happened just this past weekend. So in the state of New York, they call it the SUNY system, the State University of New York. There's one particular one in Binghamton, New York. I grew up in upstate New York, and I will tell you that SUNY Binghamton used to be the one that people would say, well, of all these state universities, and they're all pretty radically leftist, but Binghamton's kind of sane. It was, maybe more in the middle, maybe not, maybe fairly conservative. But at SUNY Binghamton, Arthur Laffer, if you recognize that name, Arthur Laffer, he was the economist, a PhD economist, who approached President Reagan as he was to begin governing our country after the years of the dismal years, the years of miasma of our economy under Jimmy Carter. Laffer approached Ronald Reagan and said, you know what, I can prove statistically with graphs you can read and see that actually, President Reagan, if you will reduce taxes, you will increase the revenue to the government. And at the time, that is now kind of like everyone knows this kind of proposition. People know this now. But it was really rather radical for Arthur Laffer to raise this point, to make that argument to President Reagan. Now it is a well-known thing. So Laffer, his charts he made to prove his point, they call the Laffer curve. Laffer is L-A-F-F-E-R. So Arthur Laffer was invited by the college Republicans at SUNY Binghamton to give a talk essentially reintroducing the greatness and the goodness of free markets, to pass along the ideas that actually freedom and free markets brings more abundance. It produces more revenue for the government when you reduce tax rates. These are provable statistical things. He came to make that argument. So he's basically coming to stand up for capitalism, free enterprise, the free market system. At SUNY Binghamton, he was booed, not just booed, the people who opposed him surrounded where he was going to be speaking, had on masks like Antifa does, hides their face because they're ashamed of themselves, had masks, loudspeakers, and bellowed and bellowed and bellowed, interfered until the school had to shut down the event. Arthur Laffer did not get to speak. Now, if you actually have any idea as a student that you go to college to engage in the robust exchange of ideas, you ought to go to the lecture, hear what Arthur Laffer has to say, get in line to ask questions, have your, whatever you want to say your question is or your points you want to make, engage in the exchange of ideas. But unfortunately for all of us, academia, college campuses, what young people consider to be their right to free speech, when they think of free speech, they think my right to shut down anyone I disagree with. And that's what happened at SUNY Binghamton. The protest got so violent, 2 students were arrested. I actually hope they're prosecuted, not just, kind of scolded and slap on the wrist, because it got violent. It's so violent and so angry and so loud in this protest and yelling in the megaphones that they had to shut down the event. This is a black mark against SUNY Binghamton. It's a black mark against the American left, who has spent decades telling young people that your right to free speech, your arrogance about your embrace of leftism means you are allowed to shut down anyone who will not agree with your radically left views. Anyone who won't agree with you, you shut them down. And this is seen as a virtue by leftists in this country.